Hilton Worldwide beat estimates on both the top and the bottom lines for the first quarter, but also said that the effects of the COVID-19 pandemic really began to take hold during just the last few weeks of the quarter. Joining us right now is Chris Nassetta. He is the president and CEO of Hilton. And Chris, thanks for being here today.
Thanks for having me, Becky. Good morning, everybody.
Good morning. I know that your industry is one of those that's been hit particularly hard by this coronavirus pandemic, just because nobody's traveling anymore, business or leisure at this point. I saw some statistics that said for the U.S. hotel industry overall, the week that ended April 25th, occupancy was down by 62%, and the average daily rate that was charged for a room was down by 43%. Does that sound about right?
Yeah, that sounds about right for the industry. I mean, obviously, we reported first quarter, which was down. And I think we noted, as you pointed out, that the second quarter is certainly going to be worse in the sense that, January and February were pretty much normal months and as expected. And then March is where we really got hit by the pandemic. A little bit, earlier in the year, obviously, in China. But, in the U.S. and the rest of the world, it was really March. And so really the crux of the impact, I think you're going to see hit the second quarter. And hopefully we're going to be, in a bit of, on the upswing in the third quarter. I've been doing this, I've talked to our teams a lot for 35 plus years. And clearly from the standpoint of our industry, and I think the world, this is pretty unprecedented a word. I think that we're all using probably too much, but I lived through the S&L crisis. I lived through the .com 9/11 situation, the Great Recession. And while all of those things were impactful in their own way, this has been devastating, to the industry, to the economy. But think about it, we require mobility to do what we do, and you have a total lack of mobility. So it's been challenging. Now, we at Hilton moved very quickly. If you look at all the news on us, to respond to it, we saw it coming very early, because we have a global business. We saw what was going on in China. We worked really quickly to sort of first protect our people, our customers, protect our team members, all 400,000+ of them. But importantly, to protect the business and make sure that we were right sizing, from a cost point of view, the business, from a CapEx point of view, that we were building a liquidity position that would get us through this. And so as hard as it is, I would say we feel like we are in really good shape to get through the crisis. We are starting to see signs of recovery. We're seeing it, and we can talk more about it if you like, in China, which went in first and has obviously come out first. We are in the very, very early stages as we start to think about reopening parts of Europe and the U.S. to see it. So, we're going to have we had a tough first quarter. We're going to have a tougher second quarter. I am certainly hopeful with what I see going on that, as we get to the third and fourth quarter, you're going to start the long process of sort of getting to recovery. And we feel great. I feel great, just as good as I did 90 days ago, about the basic long-term prospects for travel and tourism and for our model. But reality is we'll have a period of time where we're going to have to recover and rebuild.
Chris, do you think you have enough cash on hand to get through this? Do you think you'll have to go back to the market at some point? Do you think you'll need help from the government?
Well, first, we do not think we'll need help from the government. I've been very involved in the efforts on behalf of the industry with both the administration and on the Hill. But my efforts there have been really focused on frontline team members and making sure those that are being impacted on the front lines we're taking care of. It's important societally and certainly for our business, and trying to take care of our owners. We don't own any of these hotels. So our owners that own these properties all over the world and throughout the United States are facing significant liquidity issues where they have no demand. They still have expenses. And so we've been working really hard to try and help them get to the other side of this crisis. In no way have we gone to the federal government or lobbied in any way to help Hilton directly. It's really been more those constituencies. We have a really strong liquidity position. So here's the thing. While we're going to say it's unprecedented and, these are, times that we've never seen, they are, but the playbook is not that dissimilar. I lived through all the crises that I talked about before.
Yeah.
And so I might be writing some, I might be adding some chapters to the book and maybe rewriting a little bit. But reality is, the playbook that I've had for a long time was the same playbook, which is, cash is king when things start going bad fast. And so very early on, we did what we needed to do. So we have on a pro forma basis for the things we did at the end of the quarter, we have $3.8 billion in cash, which is more than enough liquidity to get us through the crisis. I do not think we need to access the capital markets anymore.
Chris, you said that you don't need the money, but your hotel chains might. I know you've got 6,100 different properties around the globe. How many of those in the United States, and how many of those owners would be reaching out to get help from the government since their businesses basically disappeared?
Yeah, we have about 5,000 hotels in the United States, so we have a broad, base, and the bulk of those, honestly, are small and medium-sized businesses that franchise with us. So whether that's a Hampton Inn, a Hilton Garden Inn, a Homewood, that's a lot of the sort of population of partners that we're trying to help. And they need help on liquidity. And while PPP has certainly been helpful and very sensible in terms of how the government has approached it, the speed with which they've approached it, because of some of the nuance and complexity of how our business is financed and owned, it has not been too terribly helpful. I think, I don't have the stats on the second tranche, but on the first tranche in the CARES Act, I think only 9% of it went to the restaurant and hospitality industry. And if you look at the numbers of people that have lost jobs, and remember that the PPP was about allowing people to be continuing to be paid and keep their jobs, we are disproportionately in the restaurant and hotel business, being impacted from a jobs point of view. And so I'm hoping the numbers in the second tranche are better. As I said, I don't have them. What we're focused on right now is the Fed's getting ready to come out with their new Main Street lending program. And so some of the things we've learned from PPP that have made it difficult for our industry, we're pushing really hard with the Fed and Treasury to make sure that the technical rules of who can access it and how it relates to existing financing that may be in place are flexible enough to help our owners. Because to your point, they are suffering. I mean, no business is built for zero revenues. They can't, no matter whether they furlough people, they've still got to pay their interest. They still got to pay real estate taxes for power, all these things that don't go away. And so, and even if they have reserves, there's only so long that most folks would have reserves to carry it.
Hey, Chris, most businesses like yours are talking about what the world looks like once we get reopened, if you will, over the next several months. In terms of preparations, what are you thinking about come fall when some of the health and science community says that there's a chance, and not necessarily an insubstantial one, that we have reinfection?
Yeah, well, I mean, I've been on the president's task force to reopen the country, and so I've had strong views on making sure that as we reopen, that we do it in a very safe way, and that the CDC guidelines are followed. That we make sure that we're doing adequate testing, so we know what the real mortality rates are. That we build a more sophisticated approach to contact tracing, continue practices of social distancing, use of PPE, and obviously keep those that are most in harm's way safe. Older and sick people. What we have done, knowing that our customers are obviously going to be concerned even when they can come out, is making sure that we, in addition to the normal good hygiene and cleaning standards that we have the absolute best industry standard for health and hygiene. So we went out and partnered with Lysol and the Mayo Clinic, both from the use of the science and the training of our people, but also in the case of Lysol, their products, to make sure that ultimately when you come stay at a Hilton, you're going to feel safe. That we are literally going to, with Mayo training and development and Lysol products and our team's implementation, when you come into our hotels, whether it's a public space or a room, that we've applied the absolute best standards of hygiene and cleaning, to a point where literally when you come into a Hilton room, in the future, you'll break a seal on the room. And that seal will signify that this has been clean to the absolute highest standard. And there are a number of other things that, the practices that, including the use of PPE and distancing and all the things that I talked about broadly, in addition to just how we clean, that we'll be implementing in our hotels. People, the one thing we know in our industry, this is sort of statement of the obvious, but it's true no matter what. People don't go places they don't feel safe. So whether that was after 9/11 and terrorism, people don't want to get on planes or they don't want to go out of their house because they're afraid of that, or whether you have, you've had micro issues with SARS and Ebola and things. People stay away from places that they don't feel safe. And in today's world, this is a global pandemic. People are not feeling safe really doing anything or going anywhere. That confidence will build back as we go through the process of reopening, if we do it really intelligently with health first and foremost. And as they do that, we want to do our part to make sure they know when they come stay with us that we're contributing to their safety, and we're contributing to making them feel confident to get back out. What customers are saying to us, and I would guess all three of you feel the same way, they want to get out. I mean, it's not that people don't want to get out. People are stir crazy. Certainly my family is. They want to get out, but they want to get out in a sensible, thoughtful way. And so, we're going to be ready. We're going to be ready to welcome guests as they want to do that and have the absolute best standards of care, as we always do.